안녕하십니까. 이 세션을 시작하겠습니다. 저는 오늘 요한갈퉁 박사님과 대담을 하게 된 중앙일보 국제문제 대기자 김영희라고 합니다. 아주 거의 귀한 분을 모셨는데요. 이분이 올해 연세가 86인데요. 아직도 정정하십니다. 이분은 노르웨이 출신으로 처음에 수학을 전공을 하셨어요. 그러다가 지금 46년째 평화 그리고 분쟁 해결 이걸 연구하고 직접 또 참여도 하시고 그래가지고 지금까지 150개의 국제 분쟁을 중재하는데 직접 참여를 하셨습니다. 150개입니다. 그리고 평화, 분쟁 해결에 관해서 쓰신 책이 공적 아니고 단독으로 쓰신 책만 해도 96권이 됩니다. 그리고 공저 중에는 한국 통일에 관한 책도 있습니다. 책 제목이요. Korea, the twisting road to unification. 한국, 통일을 향한 꾸불꾸불한 길, 겁나는 길이다 이런 얘기겠죠. 아마 이건 나중에 저한테 선물하려고 가져오진 않습니다. 그래서 이제 원래는 시간이 한 60분인데 전체적인 사정으로 10분이 시간이 줄었습니다. 그래서 제가 이제 가급적 이분한테도 좀 답변을 짧게 해달라고 부탁을 드렸고 저도 질문을 좀 짧게 한두 가지는 더 빼고 해야 될지 모르겠습니다. 첫 질문을 드리겠습니다. 여러분 잘 아시다시피 라틴어로 평화가 팍스죠. 그래서 팍스 아메리카나, 팍스 시니카 뭐 이런 얘기를 하는데 그래서 이제 이 평화를 연구하는 학문이라고 한다면 박솔로지가 되겠죠. 박솔로지. 그래서 이제 박솔로지부터 제가 질문하겠습니다. Dr. Galtung, you are father of Paxology.
So they say, or grandfather, or great-grandfather.
In other words, conflictology.
Conflictology.
You have mediated over 150 conflicts. And you have written countless number of books, single authoring 96 books. And as I know, you have written articles on conflict solution and peace, about 1,600 articles, which is really amazing. And we have put forward formulas for conflict solution and peace building. What are the root causes common to all conflicts?
Incompatible goals. Somebody wants something, somebody wants something else. Somebody wants the collapse of North Korea, North Korea wants to survive. Somebody wants the collapse of South Korea, South Korea wants to survive. Somebody wants to normalize and to have peaceful relations, somebody doesn't want it. Incompatible goals is the common factor. And when goals are incompatible, very often you get hatred as an attitude and violence as behavior. Basic point, solve the conflict.
Which may mean that as long as human race is there is going to be always conflict.
Even much more than before, because we come closer and closer and closer because of communication and transportation. It is absolutely human to, even that one single person, wants something that is incompatible with something else. Is neighbored. So we have conflicts at the micro level between persons, at the meso level inside societies, at the macro level between states, at the mega level between regions, civilizations, and at level 0 with nature. 5 different levels. We in peace studies are concerned with all 5. And when you mention my mediation, I've been working on all 5.
Okay. German philosopher Immanuel Kant wrote in his Eternal Peace that democracies or republics don't fight each other. But you have written in your book, peaceful means that democracies top the list of belligerents. Do you mean that Kant's Republican or democratic peace formula have no relevance to today?
Very happy that you quote Kant, and I know you're going to quote Erasmus Rotterdam.
Yes.
And that you haven't started by quoting two, in my mind, intellectual criminals, Machiavelli, and of course another criminal is Clausewitz. Kant and Rotterdam. Now I think Kant was very upset about monarchies. And he was absolutely right in pointing out how monarchies were making intrigues and how they had the power to launch war as Rex Gratia Dei, as the king by the grace of God. But I think he made a philosophical mistake. Because a republic is the opposite of monarchies, and monarchies are belligerent. He thought that republics are necessarily peaceful. They're not. And I know that you are pointing out that Rotterdamers had another philosophy, a more commercial philosophy. If they trade with each other, then to destroy your trade partner, you destroy yourself. I think he was the better mixologist. But I think also he made a mistake, if I may say so. I don't think he emphasized enough that the trade has to be equitable. It is not enough that one country becomes very rich and you trade with another one that becomes poorer and poorer. It has to be equitable. Because if it is not, the poor country will say, I am poor because you are rich. It's not that you are different from me. You are rich because I am poor and I am poor because you are rich. Then we have a problem.
We have also written in the same book that the more democratic the country, the more self-righteous the leaders and the people. And the more self-righteous the leaders and the people, the belligerent the country is. And America, United States, comes to mind. Does it follow from this that U.S. is more belligerent than, say, China and Russia? Because U.S. is more democratic, apparently, than China and Russia.
Self-righteousness brings in its wake that the leadership can say, our country is democratic. You benefit from our democracy. We have a right to demand from you, not only that you respect law and order and pay your taxes, but also that you lay down your life. However, in the case of US, it is much worse than that. Because the United States is based on the idea of being a chosen people by God, with a promised land, namely the land that was in front of Mayflower and the other ships when they crossed the Atlantic. The rest, I think, of your question I would leave to statistics. We can be empirical. We can simply look at encyclopedias of warfare, the last 1,000 years, George Cohen's encyclopedia, for instance, and simply count how many times, for whatever reason, a country has been involved in a war. And then we divide by the number of years that country has existed. Well, number one, United States of America. Number two, Israel. Number three, United Kingdom. Number four, Turkey. What do these four countries have in common? They believe in the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Christianity is a very important part of South Korean culture. I just mentioned it. Now, what do the first three countries have in common? United States, Israel, and United Kingdom. They are democracies, very strong on human rights. It is not a question of democracy, it's a question of what kind of people you have. Imagine you have a people that for some reason think they are entitled to go to war because they have the correct formula for the world. What do the first two countries have in common? United States and Israel. Chosen by God with the promised land. The promised land for Israel, according to Genesis 15:18, and I'm now sitting in a Christian country, so you know your Bible. 15:18, the promised land from the river of Africa, meaning the Nile to Euphrates. That territory crosses 9 states. This is Prime Minister Netanyahu's policy. Problematic. Problematic. For instance, those 8 other countries than Israel involved. So, I just mentioned it, and sometimes it is very useful to look at data. You may ask, what happened? What about Germany? Hasn't Germany been horrible? How about Japan? How about Italy? The Axis countries, so-called, during the second so-called World War. I say so-called because it was essentially in the Atlantic and Pacific theaters. Way down the list. Way down. Very problematic for me as a 14-year-old boy having my father in a German concentration camp. But in the longer run, nothing relative to the ones I mentioned.
Thank you. We have to come to Korean Peninsula now.
I was guessing that we are sort of approaching the Korean Peninsula.
North Korea is a tinderbox, not only for the Korean Peninsula, but Northeast Asia as a whole. Based on your studies of conflicts and experiences of mediating them, how are we to address the North Korea issue, including the nuclear weapons program?
By engaging in peaceful relations with North Korea, normalizing relations and peaceful relations, by cooperating on what you are good at, and be a diligent Confucians in both countries. To me, North Korea is not a communist country. It's a fundamentalist Confucian country. And the fundamentalist Confucian is based on filial piety. So we have a succession of Kims in the north and a succession of Parks in the south. It could have been Parks in the south and Kims in the north, but by chance it turned out that way. You have some Lees that may come in the future, maybe. Confucianism is the one. You are both extremely good at it. Hardworking, diligent, filial piety. Those things could only reinforce each other if you cooperate. Take an example. Take the maritime borders that the two countries draw different. Okay, you can have a naval shootout. You can have something close to a war. You can kill people. You could also say, this is a zone, a contested zone, depending on how you draw the line. Why don't we say that we fish together and we explore the ocean floor together? And what is under the ocean floor. And as a Norwegian, I would say we could also hire some Norwegian experts on breeding fish, making more fish. And you could divide the income 40-40-20. 40% for North Korea, 40% for South Korea, 20% for the ecology of the region. You can do it by a stroke of a pen if you have the willingness to do it, and the nuclear weapons will start accumulating dust. They will be there. If you focus on them, you will get more and more of them. And you will get shouting and cries for South Korean weapons, not stationed by United States, but the real thing in the hands of the Parks and not only the Kims in the north. And so I say you overwhelm the negative with the positive. I can give you 39 more examples of cooperation, but I'm not fatigued with that. I just mentioned it.
Talking about Confucianism, your argument, I'm afraid, stands only if the young leader in the north, Kim Jong-un, who is only 32 years old this year, cares about Confucianism. Do you think he cares about Confucianism or Confucian filiality?
I think he does without knowing it. And I think the same applies to Madame Park. You see, Confucianism and Buddhism are so deep in Confucian culture, in Korean culture, in the Korean peninsula. And if you draw a line or two, you don't eliminate that similarity because we are talking about things that are, as you know, 1500 years old, 2500 years old. And if you go to the background of it, Taoism, maybe 4000 years old. You're not wiping out that. You can take Juche in the north on top of it, and you can take Catholicism, Methodism on top in the south. It is still there. I am a little bit of an, what shall I say? I know a little bit about these things. And I can listen to somebody in North Korea, and I can hear the Confucian talking and the Buddhist talking. And I can listen to somebody in South Korea and hear the same, and somebody in China. Just like that somebody can listen to people in Western Europe and hear Christianity talking, for instance. They may not be aware of it themselves, that's why we call it deep culture. It's the culture that you are not aware of, and that culture is steering you very much. I see the similarities between the two. Now, you pointed out he's young. Yes, he's young. Maybe Madame Park could be older too. Maybe she's not so experienced either. Could be. Maybe if you grow up in a dynasty of politicians, maybe you learn a couple of things with your mother's milk. Maybe you do. Maybe. But what I pay attention to when I am in Pyongyang and I see the photos and see the ceremonies and things of that kind, are the enormous amount of people around that young age. These are people, I've talked with many of them, highly experienced. That young Kim is not taking decisions alone. That young Kim is put forward, and the hope is, since there is an admiration as a godlike figure, Kim Il-sung, that the Kim Il-sung is drizzling down through the filial bonds, and that there is that of Kim Il-sung, the real Kim, in the grandson. So having said that, I will only say, be careful. If you want to talk about North Korea, why don't you travel there? Why don't you try to take a trip? And you will find them surprisingly normal. And I find them very similar to you people in the south. Extremely similar. You can then, you see, train your eyes. Shall I focus on similarities or dissimilarities? You can make a decision. Shall I focus on the negative or the positive? Okay, I focus on similarities and the positive. And I say, you could make an enormous amount of fish in that territory. You could feed your populations. You could feed the North Koreans need more food. Don't think they are starving tomorrow. I've been traveling by car around in Pyongyang and so on. It's surprisingly, well, if you will, materially developed.
So, all right.
But there are also areas that are suffering.
Okay, we are the same people, and we have many common factors between the two parts of Korea. And as you say, Confucianism or Taoism may be the common denominator that bind us together. But today, they are developing nuclear weapons and long-range ICBMs, WMD. How do you explain why is he or are they doing this? And they are engaged in very frequent provocative actions. They are very belligerent. How do you explain that? Does it has to do with any Confucian teaching?
The Confucianism makes them work hard.
Work hard.
It takes a lot of work to develop these things. They're as hardworking as you people. And they're made out of the same stuff that makes trebles in the south. Now, why do they have it? Well, maybe they would tell you that there were two countries that were on the way to having nuclear weapons, and they renounced it. One country was called Libya, another one was maybe Iraq. They were both invaded by the United States of America. Maybe they have a feeling they need it. Maybe they are as upset about the team spirit exercises that have been going on for decades as you feel you have a right to be able to do it. Maybe they also feel that they need a bargaining chip for the goal of a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula. Well, I'm just giving you three small points. Maybe they also want to show, you think we are collapsing. We will tell you what we are capable of doing. The missile flies over Japan. It's not that easy to make it. And don't believe it's all made by China and Russia. Of course they are there, like the big powers are cooperating in such things. Why do they send the missile over Japan? The real address is over Okinawa and Yokosuka Air Base. Because if there should be a war, they would try to eliminate as quickly as possible the places from which the American planes would come. So I don't like this type of reasoning. So when I'm sitting in Pyongyang, I'm talking about fisheries in the joint zone. I'm talking about the enormous amount of projects that could be done together, but on equal terms. There should be equity in it. It is not good enough that a table or two has some kind of representation in North Korea, which now to a large extent has been cancelled, in order to benefit from cheap North Korean labor. That's not good enough. That is very reminiscent to colonization. If you want to build peace, it has to be on equal terms.
The problem with North Korea is that Kim Jong-un and his father have put enormous amount of money in developing this WMD while people are hungry and many are starving. How do you justify these WMD programs?
I don't justify it. Not at all. I don't justify team spirit exercise. I don't justify the weapon station in South Korea. I say you would come so much further if you were thinking about normalization, peace treaty, and, as I said, the nuclear-free Korean Peninsula. Now, the conflict in my mind is not between North Korea and South Korea. It's between North Korea and the United States of America, and they hate North Korea for a very simple reason. From 1812 to 1953, 141 years, United States of America had always won the wars they engaged in. It's a country that since 1801 has intervened militarily 248 times in other countries. It's a country that since the Second World War has killed 20 million in 37 countries. My country is an ally of them, your country is an ally. I just simply speak the truth. You can look at your newspapers, you will not find it. I don't find it in Norwegian newspapers either. It's only basic facts. Maybe they know this in North Korea, and maybe for that reason they feel to have be well armed. I am saying exactly the same in Pyongyang as I'm saying here. This is not the road to go. The road to go is to focus on the positive in your brothers and sisters in the South, and then build things together as much as possible.
Okay. North Korea.
I have 39 more examples to go, but we don't go into that. I just try to give you the spirit of it.
North Korea is today under UN-initiated international sanctions, and you, Dr. Galtung, are against sanctions, arguing that they are slow, intentional killing through malnutrition, lack of medical attention, hitting the weakest first, the children, the old, the poor, the women. Those are exactly what's happening in North Korea. But without sanctions, how do we make the regime, Kim Jong-un regime, to renounce its WMD programs as well as its belligerent actions?
I interpret the Korean word han
Han. Okay.
as resentment, ressentiment in French, as stimulating an enormous strength of defiance. Launch sanctions and they'll become more defiant. Good luck. That's what's being done, and that's what they've done. Those sanctions are against North Korea, the proliferation. The proliferation has reached 3 other countries, Pakistan, India, Israel, to go backwards in time. We haven't had those sanctions against Israel. We haven't had them against Pakistan and India either. Why just North Korea? The North Koreans are asking that question. Well, you may say that it is not only the United States that feels North Korea is problematic, it's also Russia and China. When I sit in Beijing and talk about Pyongyang, the reaction I often see is that they smile. And behind that smile, they say the following: you have problems with North Korea, don't believe that we don't have it also. Maybe an excess of Han. Maybe if you beat a dog many times, maybe the dog becomes crazy and starts biting, and the Han comes out. Could be. Maybe that dog has been beaten too much. Maybe that dog should be treated better. And I think I can guarantee you, you will get very quick results. But I have a little point, and I've used the occasion right now to say it. We have the time. And the point is this. If United States doesn't do this, and is saying collapse, 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 and praying to their God, dear God, please give us North Korean collapse. Not going to get it. The country that has to normalize, that has to take the initiative, is called the Republic of Korea. It's your country. I'm sitting here with a map of Korean Air. Korean Air has flights to everywhere in East Asia. And Korean Air does not make a distinction between democracies and dictatorships. There are lots of flights to dictatorships in China and to something in between, but there's no flight to Pyongyang. You can hardly even read the word Pyongyang on the map. Shame on you, Korean Air. Shame on you. Get your company together, start a flight to Pyongyang immediately. And I'll give you a little hint what could be the first passengers. Could be a team from the foreign ministry in Seoul to lay the foundation for what will sooner or later become the embassy of the Republic of Korea to North Korea. Okay, don't do it. Continue with team spirit. Listen to the hawks. Get your nukes. if you want that, you may risk a nuclear war. It's not at all improbable. You prefer that? You prefer that to having an air connection to Pyongyang with a possible embassy being built? Well, in that case, you have become crazy. Permit me a little rhetorical example. And I don't take it from paxology, I take it from health. Imagine you have somebody who's smoking very much and is suffering from emphysema and from the possibility of lung cancer. You can then spend quite a lot of time in discussing and blaming the guy who gave him the first cigarettes. And you can blame the father who's a chain smoker. And you can blame the mother who didn't challenge it because she was afraid of irritating the father or something of the kind. But the much better idea is to tell him, stop smoking. You can go into the past and you can say, you started, you were bad, I was bad. I was bad, I was almost perfect, but maybe I made a mistake and things of that kind. I would say, stop smoking. I could say, stop stupidity. I could also say that I sense a lot of stupidity on the Korean peninsula. Neither Seoul nor Pyongyang has a monopoly on it. The major portion of the stupidity comes from Washington. You can get out of it with simple ways and means. So there you have more or less, in a nutshell, my approach to it. Focus on the positive, on the therapy.
You have very, for me, very conveniently referred to collapsism. Collapsism, that North Korea will collapse sooner or later. And collapsism is on the rise, both in Seoul and Washington. And apparently, based on what you have said so far, you are not buying this idea of collapsism.
Well, I think it is madness, and it is based on a total disrespect for the Korean personality and nationality. These are not, I have heard in Pyongyang, not in Pyongyang, but from North Korea in 1972, that South Korea is going to collapse. Now, it was, many things in South Korea were not good. I mean, we can talk about Syngman Rhee's treatment of trade unions and Park Chung-hee and things that he did. I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying that they also engaged in the collapsist fantasy. And I've heard India talking about Pakistan collapsing and Pakistan talking about India collapsing. So we don't have to solve the Kashmir problem because the other one will collapse next month. And things of that kind. Nonsense. Mm-hmm. There is pride and dignity. There is spiritual force. Don't underestimate the spiritual force on both sides of the armistice line. There will be no collapse, except one collapse that I am hoping for, and that's the collapse of collapsism.
Thank you. You have aroused enormous controversies by distinguishing the U.S. as a republic, U.S. the republic, and U.S. as an empire. And you predict fall of the U.S. empire in 2020. It's just 4 years away, and your time is ticking. And do you still stand by your prediction?
You have to understand what an empire is. Under colonialism, you send your own people, you steal other people's country, you make yourself your lord over them, and you send settlers. That's not what the US does. The US strategy is imperialism, building empire. You don't send that many Americans, you send some. But you pay local elites in various ways for doing the job for you. One important job in an empire that you ask the elites to do is to kill on behalf of the United States of America. Okay, what's happening? They lost Latin America. they are gradually losing NATO. France and Germany refuse to kill for the United States, essentially, in Ukraine. In Latin America, they used to have one enemy country called Cuba that will enter history as the first country that challenged the US empire. Fidel Castro is still alive. He has survived 10 US presidents. He's working on number 11. His name is Obama. Okay. My prediction has already to a large extent been fulfilled. Today in Latin America, United States has one friend, and it's actually Canada, and that's Trinidad and Tobago. The others have come together in a union, Latin American Caribbean Union, ELAC, Estados Latinoamericanos y Caribe. What they demand is not to run Anglo-America or to dominate Anglo-America or to take revenge. They demand negotiations on equal terms, and they are getting it. Obama capitulated on Cuba. Obama will one day have a successor who will capitulate on North Korean stupidity too. The stupidity with Cuba came from 1960. The stupidity with North Korea is somewhat older, 7 years older. One way of getting out of a stupidity is to do the opposite. I use the words that I use, and I have a feeling that my prediction has come true earlier than I said. By that, I do not mean that the United States is not killing, but it has to do the killing itself. Are you aware of the fact that New York Times wrote about 1 week ago, that the most belligerent president in the history of the United States is Barack Obama? It is not drones. It is SEALs, sharpshooting, according to some information in 130 countries. Much more belligerents than Bush 1 and Bush 2, beating Nixon by far. Why? Because others refuse to do the killing for him. That's what I mean by collapse of empire. I never promised that the US would stop killing. I hope it will. I hope it will stop chain smoking. It's addiction that will get out of stupidity. And I am greatly encouraged by something that has happened that was written up in Le Monde Diplomatique for May. 3 leading US politicians are saying no to more warfare. Obama, he's doing a lot of it. Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Sanders. There is only one who says he's enthusiastic about warfare. Her name is Hillary Clinton. I think Donald Trump would be a disaster in many ways for the US, but a blessing for the world. Hillary Clinton would be US as usual, and a horror for the world. If you want war with North Korea, try to encourage all your American friends to vote for Hillary Clinton. You may get it. We won't get it with Donald Trump. He has quite a lot of cards. Some of them I like, most of them I don't like. But I'm not an American, so I don't have the right to vote. Americans are voting on behalf of us, because I'm not denying that the United States is powerful and important.
Why is Trump presidency?
Why is Trump?
What is Trump presidency? If Trump get elected as president, why is it a bliss for the world? Except
I'm
the
not
United
going
States.
to predict whether he will win or not. There are so many hidden forces. The Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee have hidden faces behind that are pulling ropes. As you know very well, the United States is not a democracy. It's a delegatocracy. Delegates can be bought. They are bribable. It may also be that delegates can change. A delegatocracy might sign up for Trump. They might even sign up for Sanders. We have interesting things ahead of us in the month of July. Maybe July is more important than November from that point of view. So I don't risk any kind of prediction on it.
Okay.
I'm just saying that the importance of United States elections is much too high. We should not be that dependent on one country. But what you sense is a challenge of the two-party system, a revolt from below in many different ways, challenging the system. Political parties in the Republic of Korea, watch out. You may get the same in this country. Good luck to you.
UN and we know how powerful the military-industrial complex is in the United States. Do you think the military-industrial political complex, including Congress, Parliament, will allow the US empire to collapse?
It costs a lot when you have to do the killing yourself. If you have others doing the killing for you, it helps. Now, Trump's argument is we can't afford it. Cruz's argument is it doesn't work.
Okay.
Obama's is continuing. He's producing mini nukes. Obama is a professional liar, not an amateur. He's a hypocrite. He has a certain rhetorical talent. I, as a professor, recognize another professor. But I don't believe one single word of what he says, because he just does the opposite. He talks about nuclear disarmament, whereupon he produces more nukes than ever, and particularly the mini nukes. He will not gain by that. He will have the world turning against him. And it is coming. And it's coming surprisingly quickly. And that's what he sees himself. I'm not denying that he is bright. He's a bright liar, but with a rhetorical talent. He will not last many more months, so we will see what comes next. I will not miss him. I belong to those people. And we will see what comes next. But the complex is strong, and it is reaching Congress too.
Can you cite just one example of Obama's lie?
To talk in Praha about nuclear disarmament, entering a treaty with Russia to disarm old-fashioned weapons, at the same time, in the same week or month at least, allocating $1.5 billion for producing more modern nuclear weapons with weapon carriers. I call that a lie. I would like to define a lie. One thing is to speak untruth. That's not a lie. But when you know that it is an untruth, it's a lie. He knew perfectly well what he was allocating money for back home. As you all know, it goes through the Department of Energy, so it is concealed, it is taken off the military budget, which is a little trick. He was lying. I can give you many other examples, but don't let us waste time on Obama. Obama is soon out. Don't let us waste time on him.
But it is your motherland, Norway, who awarded Nobel Peace Prize to Obama. Was Norway deceived by his lie?
Yes. Let me give you 3 small points about the Nobel Peace Prize. It is a prize, but it is neither noble nor about peace. It's a prize essentially to Western politicians. It can also be to other politicians if their politics is compatible with Norwegian foreign policy. The Norwegian military has as a condition that of the 5 members of the committee, 3 of them shall be friendly to the military. That you didn't know, you see. It's an advantage sometimes. You see, ours is a small country. We are not good at keeping secrets from each other. We are too small for that. I know the whole jazz, how it goes on. In other words, it's a question essentially for Norway of rewarding itself. Essentially, and for the military to assure that there is no threat in it. So, Figueres, who abolished the Costa Rican army, did not get the Peace Prize. Even though in the Nobel Testament it says reducing standing armies. He didn't get it. It was not Norwegian foreign policy to abolish the Norwegian army. And if there is anything they're afraid of, then there is somebody saying, you get the Peace Prize to that one. Now what about Norwegian foreign policy? They are scared to death by that. I would ask you to look at the prizes. You will find some good prizes, absolutely. You will find very many very dubious ones. The prize to Kissinger, Le Dictot refused. Pay attention to that. To make a symmetry between a war criminal and the so-called North Vietnamese standing up for his own country is madness. So don't take it too seriously. And it would be a very good idea if Norway would hand the prize over to the United Nations, not to the Security Council, because they would reward themselves, but to the General Assembly.
Thank you. I hope President Obama is not going to be informed of this forum.
I think he knows about it. And I think Mr. Obama either has a listening device in this room or he has somebody well-rigged with a listening device.
China,
They are quite good at these things.
China is on the rise, militarily as well as economically. And Japan is becoming, quote-unquote, normal country with war-capable army or armed forces. If, in your theory, United States as the empire collapse or falls, does it follow that China and or Japan will be the sole or 2 superpowers in the region?
No. China is too arrogant for that. Arrogant. The world doesn't deserve to be run by China. It can be run by the United States of America. That may be what the world deserves, but not by China. China sees itself as superior, is very China-centric. I admire the country in very many ways, but it is essentially a succession of dynasties at war with each other. It has a pocket surrounded by the Himalayas, the Gobi Desert, the tundra, and the sea. Inside that pocket, it does stupid imperial things. Outside that topic, it has almost never been. It has ambition of establishing harmony, and it tries to do it by bilateral deals, bilateral diplomacy, and it tries to do it by doing it equitably. I've been invited to lecture at the party school, and one topic I was invited to lecture about was, Professor Galtung, could you give a lecture about the possible decline and fall of the communist dynasty in China? Nobody in Washington has invited me to give a lecture about the decline and fall of the US empire. Now, see, why do they do that? Well, I find them extremely open to dialogue. And I said, if you go in for a switch from the real economy to finance economy and you start speculating, it may be the end. You have a lot of money to speculate with. It may be the end. So if you want to dig your own grave, have a look at the United States and what happened in 2008, and you'll get good inspiration for grave digging. But I don't see them as a coming superpower. We have tensions in East Asia. They are horrible. I have tried to indicate some ways in which some of them on the Korean Peninsula could be avoided. A Northeast Asian community is badly needed. Sharing of the islands, not only what I mentioned, sharing of Sensaku, Gyago, sharing of Takashima, Dokdo, sharing of the northern territory between Russia and Japan, sharing the income, 40-40-20 or something of the kind, following the excellent example by Tun Mahathir Mohamad, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia. I think he's present at the conference, who, in a similar dispute with Thailand about maritime borders, suggested, let us share it and share the income 50-50. I know Tun, I admire him, and I would have suggested 40-40-20, but that's the way to do it. That's not too far away from East Asia, Thailand and Malaysia. You could be inspired by that. Thank you.
Do you think, how do you interpret what is Xi Jinping's one belt, one road to you? What does it mean to you? One belt, one road. One belt, one road.
One
Silk Road, recovery.
A peace culture. Spreading a culture of peaceful conflict resolution. And there are 3 points that are ridiculously simple. If you want to solve a conflict, talk with all parties. Ask them, what does the world look like that you would like to live in? Point 2. Test the legitimacy of what they say. Test the legitimacy, not only of their goals, but also their means. Test it against law, human rights, and basic needs. I don't find killing 20 million people in 37 countries compatible with law, human rights, and basic needs. Point 3. Try to build a bridge between legitimate goals. Build a bridge between legitimate goals. Link the good in the two parties. Maybe a husband and a wife who have been quarreling for 20 years, find the good points about them and try to build a project based on their good points. Those could be the Koreas.
We have left only 4 minutes now, so brief question, brief answer, okay?
One more question.
Last and blank point question. When and in what manner will Korea be unified, if ever? Yes, this one.
In 1972, I was participating in Kyoto as a paxologist. And I made as my point, make a distinction, please, between unification of the nation and unification of the states. Unification of the nation means open border cooperation. And you may start with the 11 million in the families that have been separated. Unification of the states means one president less. That's problematic. Now, Kim Il-sung had a very clear idea about which president was superfluous. That one had an equally clear idea about who was superfluous. My advice was, don't waste time on the jealousies and the egocentric habits of these two people. Build unification of the nation. the two states will come closer and closer together. And maybe one day you would call the Korean Peninsula the Korean Community. Maybe we will call it the Korean Union. Maybe we'd have a joint facility in Panmunjom. Maybe DMZ would be a big, vast park where they could get strolling. 100 square kilometers. Not bad. Beautiful things can happen. But if you insist on starting with the unification of two states, you'll get into problems.
I have one more last question.
His concept of last is flexible.
Yes.
You have to be flexible if you are a Korean.
Okay, I give you 2 minutes for answers. What is the driving force of the IS, Islam State? Why do so many youngsters volunteer to join IS? 2 minutes.
The driving force of the Islamic State has to do with custodianship in Mecca, Medina. It is not primarily about Iraq and Syria. That is small things. It's about Mecca, Medina. 92%, according to a recent Gallup poll, said that the best carrier of Islam today is the Islamic State. 92% of the citizens of Saudi Arabia. It is not a corrupt, decrepit Saudi Arabia royalty that happens to be an ally of the United States of America. They then say, in order to promote that, we need the same thing as you Christian humanists have in Europe. You have a European state called the European Union. We live in a world of states, we need an Islamic state. In addition to that, you have, for one branch of Christianity, you have a Vatican and a Catholic Church. Our Vatican is Mecca, Medina. Our Catholic Church is called the Caliphate. If you have a right to have that, we have the same right, my friends, and we are going to pursue it. That is what we are up with. 1,650, they are brutal. They are taking revenge. They are not taking it so lightly that 1 million Muslims were killed by a US-led coalition in Iraq, 100,000 in Afghanistan. They are not taking it lightly, but they are taking retribution with moderation, killing 1,000, for instance. I don't agree with that, and my recommendation is for the West to use its military defensively, parachuting down defensive defense around the threatened territories. Go ahead killing? Yes, do that. And you produce 10 more for the Islamic State next morning. But go ahead if you want it. 1,650 million Muslims against 2,300 million Christians, some of them in Korea, some of them in Norway. The difference is that the Muslims believe. The mosques are filled. Christian churches are to a large extent empty. Ladies and gentlemen, they are strong. Negotiate with them, respect them, denounce them for their brutal violence, then look into your own, use your military defensively. I'm on Skype with them. Okay. Go on Skype with them if you don't want to travel to the territory.
이걸로 이제 마쳐야겠습니다. 왜냐하면 이 시간이 없어서요. 근데 제 생각으로는 정말 놀라운 이 말씀을 오늘 많이 들었습니다. I have the impression that you have dropped a bomb on us. You have dropped a bomb on us.
Well, but it's not nuclear. I would say that, and I would like to emphasize I'm not the slightest anti-American. Absolutely not. My wife and I, we love the people and the country, but I have some quarrels with U.S. foreign policy.
Thank you very much. 자, 큰 박수 한번 보내주시기 바랍니다. 네, 고맙습니다.